Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the 2018 State of the University Address and to Convocation Hall. Let me begin by acknowledging with respect that we are located on Treaty 6 territory, traditional lands of First Nations and Métis peoples. I want to thank all of you for coming and joining me both here and via live stream. I'd also like to welcome our Chancellor, Douglas Stollery, for being here today. Thank you, Doug. Coming together as a community is always important. This is the time of year when the academic community gathers anew, whether it is for department or faculty meetings, staff retreats, or the first few days of classes. Gathering in early fall is always about setting the stage for the year to come. What's on the reading list? How many assignments? What's the big strategic goal? 2 years ago, I used this opportunity to launch For the Public Good, the strategic plan that we as a community developed together. Last year, I spoke of some of the major initiatives that were unfolding as a result of that plan. We all know that there is a lot on tap for this coming year. Some of the initiatives include the development of a new international strategy and further progress on our pathway towards reconciliation, the rollout of a new strategic plan for equity, diversity, and inclusion, the ongoing development of our national recruitment strategy, and the building of additional experiential learning opportunities for our students, the implementation of a new budget model, and the continuation of our multi-year budget planning efforts in a time of uncertainty. A major community engagement process is underway, and a special ad hoc committee of the Senate is engaging key stakeholders on best practices around the selection of honorary degrees. Our first three signature areas, precision health, energy systems, and research at the intersection of gender, will be preparing for official launches later this year. And there are many, many more initiatives underway. This year, however, before we get down to that work, I want to take a step back and ask ourselves the larger questions that hover behind these initiatives. Why does this work matter? What is the larger purpose of our work here at the University of Alberta? In early September, I was at a board retreat organized by Board Chair Michael Fair to develop the board's work plan and overall agenda for the year ahead. Richard Florida, urban studies theorist and head of the Martin Prosperity Institute at the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto, was one of the keynote speakers. He began his presentation with a story. He came from a working-class family in a suburb of Newark, New Jersey, and was the first person in his family to go to college. He was the recipient of a Garden State Scholarship, a scholarship that made it possible for him to attend Rutgers University, one of America's first public land-grant institutions. He credits that scholarship for changing the direction of his life. By his account, it took him out of a very negative peer environment, out of his comfort zone, and into a place where he could study and meet other people, and ultimately realize his lifelong interest in cities could actually be the subject of research and, in fact, his future academic career. He told us this story to emphasize the role that public support has played in his life. From that Garden State Scholarship until now, public support of education, first in the United States and then here in Canada, has been essential to his personal and professional success, and more importantly, to the success of millions of others. It is a story every one of us can relate to. Listening to Richard Florida, I thought of Canada's outstanding public education system, from kindergarten through to grade 12. I thought of our incredible nationwide community of post-secondary colleges and universities, almost all of which are publicly funded institutions. The vast majority of Canadian students and graduates are the beneficiaries of public support. I was also reminded of the many conversations Provost Steve Dew and I had with many of you during the drafting for the public good. At campus town halls or roundtables, several of you stood up to say, we must underscore that the University of Alberta is a public university, a designation that comes with a particular mission and purpose in serving the people who support it. The foundation of public education runs deep in this province. The University Act was one of the first acts passed during the first sitting of the provincial legislature. Premier Alexander Rutherford also moved quickly to open 500 schools across the province and began building what has become one of the world's finest education systems. Alberta, since its beginning, has used its wealth and natural resources to fund knowledge and learning. Take away that government funding and this university, and it's hard to imagine this province being what it is today. And yet, history is not destiny. I am now in my 4th year as president, and have been reflecting on Florida's comments about the transformative power of publicly supported education, both to the development of individuals and to that of our cities and our communities. This comes during a period of uncertainty for us. We know there are 2 elections ahead, provincial and federal, that could change how universities like ours are supported by our governments. In addition to discussions here on campus over the past several months, I have also been meeting with presidents of Campus Alberta's 26 post-secondary institutions. We've been talking about how we as presidents can work together as effective advocates for the sector and for our students. How can we make the case that post-secondary education is a public good? That continued investment in knowledge and learning makes sense in a 21st century Alberta. In Ottawa, at several meetings over the past few weeks, I have also met with colleagues from across Canada, where we discussed the next stage of advocacy related to the federal government's Fundamental Science Review. To succeed in our efforts, we know we must find compelling answers to key questions. What role do universities play in Canada? How can we better contribute to social inclusion and mobility? Why is the public funding of basic research so important? How can we translate that public investment in education and fundamental research into made-in-Canada technical and social innovations for the benefit of all? Whether we are speaking at the provincial or federal levels, whether we are talking to our neighbors or our families, those of us who work in universities must be keenly aware that we cannot take the public support we currently enjoy for granted. So, how do we build a compelling case that will resonate with Albertans and Canadians when there are so many other worthy public services in need of public support? As you know, I'm a scientist. So let's begin with some data. Earlier this year, the University of Alberta engaged Alex Usher, CEO of Higher Education Strategy Associates, to help formulate several areas of vital importance to what we termed an Alberta knowledge strategy. He worked with us to identify 3 areas. Number 1, Alberta needs to successfully navigate major changes to our economic and social models. The development of our natural resource wealth, still vitally important, must be matched by development of emerging fields and industries. Usher highlighted that one of the key threats to Alberta's future is the increasing inability of Alberta to develop its own talent. In 2000, the participation rate of 19-year-old Albertans in post-secondary education was about the national average. Today, we sit near the bottom of the pack in Canada. This is in spite of the fact that Alberta has one of the highest quality post-secondary systems of colleges and universities in the country. What explains this decline? Data shows that we lack the spaces for the number of students Alberta needs in higher education. There is not enough capacity in the system. This is occurring at a time where growth in the youth population in Alberta is much greater than the national average. To bring us up to the national average in terms of participation rate, our system would need to grow to accommodate an additional 47,000 new students. This kind of increase will take time. As a province, I believe we should set the target and the investment strategy needed to reach this goal by 2025. Number two, we know there are some young Albertans who currently cannot access the system because of affordability, and they need more help. Out of all the provinces, Alberta's student aid system has the lowest grant-to-loan ratio. Only 20% of Alberta's student aid program comes as a needs-based grant. The remaining 80% is a loan that must be paid back. By comparison, Ontario's student aid program consists of 65% grants and only 35% loans. I think of the hundreds of young students who come to our campus each year through the Senate's U-School program, a program aimed at introducing school-aged children from underserved and vulnerable communities to university. 9 years in, the program is bearing fruit. 38 of U-School graduates are now attending the U of A. For these students, many like Richard Florida, the first in their families to go to university, and they need generous student aid packages in order to be here. Alberta is losing out on its own talent at precisely the time in which we need it most. Our province, like other regions in the world, must deal with major changes that are coming to our economic and social models. We need to ensure that we are refreshing the pool of highly skilled, creative people to lead the way by building the province's post-secondary educational system to the capacity that we need. Number three, we also need to ensure that support for research and innovation in new, emerging, and existing fields, from artificial intelligence to alternative energies, to precision health, to social inclusion, keeps pace with the change. When it comes to funding for research, are we where we need to be? According to the Fundamental Science Review, Canada's investment in research and development has been in decline for 15 years relative to our gross domestic product, or GDP. Canada has fallen out of the top 10 nations worldwide. After a number of significant increases from 2000 to 2006, total federal research funding more or less stayed stable through 2015, resulting in an erosion in real funding. At the same time, the number of researchers being supported grew by 20%. Now, we all know firsthand the detrimental impacts of those changes, which is why universities across Canada banded together in a major advocacy effort after the report was released. We succeeded in drawing significant new investments to the Tri-Council in the federal 2018 budgets. In fact, it was one of the most significant gains in funding to the granting councils in Canadian history. There is still much more to do to build the case. Increased provincial and federal investment in cutting-edge research will be key to ensuring Alberta's and Canada's long-term prosperity. So, if we look at the data, we can make our case for public investment in post-secondary education and research. But perhaps one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn in my early days of being a university leader was that data alone does not move people. Or if it does, it doesn't move them far enough. When you need to move people, data can only help you build the structure of your argument. Emotional human connection is far more important if you want to draw people in and work with you in achieving a goal. All of us here today can testify to the value of public investment in universities and colleges. The challenge before us, however, is how do we take the picture that data paints and make it tangible and meaningful to individual Albertans and Canadians. 47,000 spaces, one of the lowest percentages of non-repayable student aid in Canada. The importance of investing in discovery-based research. How do we make these data matter to Albertans and Canadians? We must answer the bigger questions around purpose. What is the purpose of a public university? Is a public university de facto a public good? The answer for me begins with the fact that the University of Alberta takes the human potential of our students, the potential of sons and daughters, of nephews and nieces, mothers and fathers, and it amplifies it and unleashes it into communities and society where it continues to grow and have broad impact. If we look back, we can see the kind of impact our students and graduates have had. Think of award-winning journalist Paula Simons or activist Patty Lubaquin-Benson, two distinguished alumna, both appointed to the Canadian Senate last week. I think of Beverly McLaughlin, recently retired Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada. Her potential was clear from her arrival at the U of A and through her degrees in arts and law. But even her most supportive professors could not have imagined the impact she would eventually have on this country's justice system and the interpretation of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Consider, too, the impact of U of A's many Indigenous alumni who have recently formed a new alumni chapter. As student leaders, their foundational work helped to establish Indigenous programs and services at the U of A that have evolved into today's Faculty of Native Studies, First Peoples House, and Aboriginal teacher education programs. As graduates, they became leading educators, activists, artists, lawyers, negotiators, and elected officials, all of them making substantial contributions to advancing Indigenous issues and their communities over the last 40 years in Canada and internationally. We can see the same potential in our students today. Take Roshan Ashel, a PhD student in the Department of Physics, as an example. A member of Bob Woolco's nanoscale physics research team, Roshan has figured out how to create an atomic scale computer memory that could exceed the capacity of today's solid-state storage drives by 1,000 times. The potential impact of this discovery, coupled with many others made by Bob and his team, is enormous. Or consider the potential of nursing student Tracy Folorun-Shoberi. Tracy came to the U of A as an immigrant, struggling with isolation, not yet 30 years old, and the mother of 5. Not only has she found the courage to reshape her life, she's since founded her own nonprofit organization to empower other immigrant women to build communities and to pursue their goals. Already, Tracy's organization is active in cities across Canada. Imagine how many lives it may have touched 10 years from now. More young Albertans like Chen and Tracy deserve to have their potential amplified through exceptional learning experiences here at the U of A. Alberta needs the benefit of their potential unleashed. The province needs the skills, knowledge, and creativity that our graduates will take into new and existing industries, businesses, government, and community organizations, classrooms, courtrooms, and hospitals, theaters, design studios, and more. That is the purpose of providing public investment in education. That is why growing the system's capacity and increasing the proportion of non-refundable student financial aid matters. It is ultimately about nurturing the human potential of individual Albertans and giving them the skills and knowledge they need to help our communities thrive. If the case begins with human potential, in universities, that potential is also borne out in discovery and innovation. Thanks to public support, universities and university researchers play critical roles in addressing big global challenges that can only be solved through major collaborative efforts. Earlier this year, I spoke at a summit of global mayors, which met in the days prior to the IPCC Cities and Climate Change Conference hosted here in Edmonton. Mayors from around the world know better than anyone that cities are on the front lines of the effects of climate change. When rivers flood, fires burn out of control, or tornadoes strike, cities often bear the brunt of the disaster. Think of Calgary, Fort McMurray, and Ottawa. Cities bear the brunt, but they are also major contributors to the problem. More than 50% of the world's population lives in cities. They use massive amounts of energy and currently produce 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Clearly, our cities need to be redesigned and reimagined. We need to change the energy sources that fuel them and rethink every aspect of how we use and deliver energy, in what form, for what purpose. We need to rebuild infrastructure and governance systems that provide and manage our energy system and its impact on the environment. Given the complexity of the challenge, a systems approach is essential. And the U of A has been actively engaged, thanks to our expertise in energy and climate research that spans at least 10 faculties and more than 100 years. In 2016, we launched Future Energy Systems, a $75 million research institute, and now, with the development of energy systems as a signature area, we will continue to amplify and expand that work. We are in this position today because public funding over many decades enabled hundreds of individuals to pursue fundamental research that is advancing us towards the solutions we need. The same can be said of the other 2 signature areas we will formally be launching in the near future. Both are also tackling big, systemic challenges with broad and diverse approaches. Precision health has the potential to revolutionize current healthcare models. It leverages data, new technologies, and the study of factors such as genomics, metabolomics, nutrition, and environment to better understand and address disease and disabilities. Through the use and study of population data, Precision health research also has the potential to lead to new approaches to disease prevention, health promotion, rehabilitation, and reduction of health disparities in populations. Energy and health, two major global challenges that require both technological and social solutions. Finding these social solutions, however, requires foundational research into the ways in which we structure societies, knowledge, and identity. On any given day, we see people around the world marching in solidarity to call attention to how political, social, and economic inequalities are being borne disproportionately by women, people of color, Indigenous people, people with disabilities, immigrants, and undocumented people. It is critical that we increase our understanding of how gender intersects with other aspects of identity and social belonging, such as race, ethnicity, class, age, and religion, to create the conditions that perpetuate and reinforce the inequalities we are seeking to overcome. Research at the intersections of gender supports research essential to our ability to solve today's most complex challenges, from healthcare delivery in refugee camps and water security on Indigenous reserves, to changes to cities' transport systems and the institutionalized of sexual harassment. The development of these signature areas today would not be possible if not for U of A's commitment to a broad research and teaching mission, and the strong, sometimes exceptional investment in research we have attracted from both provincial and federal governments. In fact, this past year, we secured $500 million in external research funding. Most private sector organizations today are beholden entirely to their shareholders. Increasingly, they are driven to produce quick results and appreciable returns quarter by quarter. Public universities, in contrast, have a different purpose. We have been given the privilege, in large part by our public funders, of a longer-term horizon and greater opportunity to explore risky ideas. Undergraduates are given at least 4 years to develop specialized knowledge and skills before they are expected to begin contributing substantially to the building of their communities. The expected timelines of fundamental research are much longer than that. With steadfast public investment in long-term research, the University of Alberta has proven repeatedly over our history that we can and will continue to make major contributions to the well-being and prosperity of this province, Canada, and the world. 40 years ago, nobody would have thought that a scientist developing computer programs that could play games would result in the University of Alberta becoming a global leader in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Today, artificial intelligence is expected to disrupt almost every facet of life, and its anticipated global economic impact is now estimated to be at least $50 trillion. This is just one example where I can point to the benefit of long-term public funding at the University of Alberta. Such funding makes it possible for our university to create environments where individuals can excel and pursue fundamental research which may appear to some as irrelevant in the beginning, but eventually leads to incredible change. I have been challenged over the years to explain why universities feel that they are distinct from other organizations. And for me, it boils down to the breadth of our mission and the bedrock commitment that we have to institutional autonomy and academic freedom. Both are essential to the advancement of knowledge. And from there, essential to the development of most every imaginable type of innovation that might eventually be put to use in society. Both are also essential elements of the special unfettered environment that universities create in which individuals can excel. Unfettered, autonomous, and independent. I cannot think of a single private sector organization that has the breadth of mission and diversity of methodologies and philosophies as the university. They also do not have the same ability to tolerate the internal debate, disagreement, and sometimes even dissent that comes with the university's competing and conflicting academic missions. We have that ability because of our autonomy and independence. And it is important to acknowledge that we have that autonomy and independence because over many generations, our public funders have understood the very real benefits that come out of the environment that we create. When I am asked, what is the purpose of a public university? Why should the public invest in our work? My answer is ultimately that it is about potential. The potential of real human beings who, when put into a place where they are able to excel, have the potential to create new ideas and knowledge that can change the world in incredible ways. Potential is not a product that one can see or measure. Its outputs far exceed economic measures, even though they are essential to a community's economic health. Reducing the value of public education to economic measures alone has long been recognized as a mistake, and the steadfast support of knowledge and learning in this province is a testament to that. At the same time, however, public funding often comes under threat when the public feels universities and colleges are out of step with economic realities. So how do we respond? First, we can challenge the narrative that we are out of step. We can point to North American labor market statistics that consistently show that university graduates experience much higher rates of employment and pay than those with lower levels of education. At the University of Alberta, the unemployment rate for graduates is just 2.8% 5 years out from graduation, significantly lower than the 6.9% national average. In addition to economic benefits, Canadian university graduates are also more likely to volunteer and are more engaged with their civic responsibilities. Second, and more importantly, we must continue to evolve as we always have since our founding more than 100 years ago. The University of Alberta has consistently provided the research and highly skilled people this province has needed to build and strengthen its communities and to fuel its chief economic sectors, its outstanding suite of public services, and its vibrant arts and culture. We have done so by being a forward-looking institution. We must remain responsive to our students and to changes in our community. Innovative new programs are launched every year to meet student demand. We must continue to put a focus on expanding experiential learning opportunities, encouraging students to test the traditional lines between so-called classroom learning and real-world demands. And we must continue to work with our external partners to create and translate new knowledge into all kinds of public goods, from products to public policy, more quickly and more effectively. So today, I ask you to join me in continuing with this important work. I ask that you join me in advocating strongly for our sector. Ours is a powerful story of public good, a story that has been supported by generations of Albertans through strong public funding. That funding has led to real and tangible results of human potential fulfilled, knowledge and learning turned into engines of incredible social change and economic growth, and communities built and sustained. Thank you for all that you do to fulfill the mission of the University of Alberta. I look forward to working with you to advance the many initiatives and projects we have set for the coming year, all with the ultimate goals of fulfilling our students' potential and continuing to play a lead role in building a better city, a better province, and a better Canada. Thank you. Thank you very much. And before we open it up to questions, I just want to remind everybody that yesterday we launched the University of Alberta's United Way campaign. And this is one way that we get to stand up as a university community and support the greater Edmonton community. So if you are a donor, I want to say thank you, and please consider increasing your contribution this year. And if you're not, I challenge you to make a contribution. It doesn't have to be much. You can do it online. It's very simple. And together we can work to demonstrate to our broader community the important role that we see playing and how important Edmonton is to the University of Alberta. So I now invite any questions on anything I've had to say or anything else you'd like to ask. We've got a microphone here. Please use it because the people on the live stream will be able to hear you as well. And when you get to the microphone, please introduce yourself and situate yourself on campus so people know who's speaking.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Johansson. I'm president of the Non-Academic Staff Association. Thank you, President Turpin, for your remarks. You've given a very persuasive argument about the importance of the university's work to the public. And I think it really resonates for me. One of the reasons that I chose to seek employment at the University of Alberta is because I always saw it as being a place that contributes to the larger society, and that's something that I feel strongly about being a part of. And I know when I talk to other NASA members, it's something that a lot of them feel really strongly about and take pride in, that the university contributes to society in such a meaningful way and in so many different ways. And so you've talked about a lot of different things in your remarks, and I'm wondering, for people who are working in support staff roles at the university, when they're going out and talking to their friends and family and community and telling them about why the university is so important to Alberta and to their friends and families and communities, what would you see as maybe the key one or 2 points just for those types of conversations that people can share?
Well, I think the examples I tried to give really mean that universities and colleges, but let's just speak about the University of Alberta, benefit everybody, even those that don't attend, and may never actually come in contact in any direct way, but indirectly, everybody benefits. So speaking about the potential of our students and the things that our students go on to do, thinking about the wonderful examples that we all have from students that we have met on campus, talking about some of the transformative research, the diseases that have been cured, the innovations that have occurred, giving meaningful examples. And then I would think talking about the importance of growing our system's capacity so that every qualified high school graduate in this province can find a place in post-secondary education in this province. That we need a student financial aid package that supports those that have financial challenges, and that we need the support for innovation and research, and that everybody will benefit from those investments. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chen. I am the president of the Engineering Student Society. So obviously, my perspective is from one of the undergrads, and you'd spoken about how universities in general are a way of empowering the abilities innate within people, and I was curious about what your perspective is and how that occurs within the University of Alberta. What does the University of Alberta do differently from other universities or other institutions, and how are you trying to expand or build on what is currently already in place?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is to take the high level and think about post-secondary generally, and post-secondary simply serves as a huge tool in unlocking student potential. We are extraordinarily fortunate in Canada that we have a great community of universities right across the country. And I would say that when you compare ourselves to other major industrialized countries, we are extraordinarily fortunate that the institutions are of such high quality. Here at the University of Alberta, our strategic plan really spells out how we are trying to make a difference, using those 5 verbs: build, experience, excel, engage, and sustain. And if you think of what I want to do is focus on the experience verb, where we have made a major commitment to build experiential learning opportunities right across campus. And we're one of the Canadian leaders in that, something we can be extraordinarily proud of. We've got much more work to do, but engineering, again, is an example of a faculty that is leading the way. So experiential learning opportunities, putting students into the research-intensive environment. I just came from an announcement where the federal government celebrated the Post-Secondary Strategic Initiatives Fund, where we had 10 different projects across our campuses, and one of which was the Student Innovation Center over in the science block in CSIS, where students can get together and have a place to house companies or special initiatives or look at developing new ideas. So there are a number of ways in which we are working to provide unique opportunities here on the U of A campus.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Chung. I'm one of the senators serving the university. Mr. President, I want to thank you for your very lively talk and find that to be very, very encouraging. If I may want to summarize, what can we do to summarize in terms of a year from now, 2 years from now, where we are and where we want to be? So can you please enlighten us on that?
Well, I think the point of my talk today was to get us back up to a high level, to remember the purpose of our university in our community, and recognizing we're moving into a year where we have 2 elections, a provincial election and a federal election. And what we need to do as a community, I can't do it by myself. What I need everyone in this community to do is to speak up to the importance of post-secondary education and research. So if we were to roll the clock forward a year from now, regardless of the outcomes of the election, regardless of what party is in power in this province or what party is in power federally, that each of those successful parties would be strong supporters of education and research throughout this province and throughout the country. Bill, that is how I would judge success.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Dr. Turpin. I'm wondering, you spoke
Sasha,
about...
introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry.
I know who you are.
I'm Sasha van der Klein. I'm the president of the Graduate Students Association. I'm an international student. I'm from the Netherlands. And often when I talk with students here, I talk with international students. And the conversation that happens sometimes with domestic students is the the replacement of why are the international students here. How do you think both international and domestic students need to come out with the messages that international students are not replacing domestic students, but adding value to the experience of domestic students?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you asked that question, Sasha. It is sort of an urban myth that is floating out there that if we bring in an international student, there is an Albertan or a Canadian that's not being educated. And international students pay much higher fees. Government is clear that we can't use the Campus Alberta grant or undergraduate domestic tuition to subsidize international students. And so what the message that we constantly take out is one that this is not about displacing Canadian students from our post-secondary system. This is about improving the quality of the learning environment for all students. What better opportunity for Albertans than to have people like you on campus, to have people from around the world, 140 some countries are represented here on campus, where they can meet and learn from these other world experiences. And that is what we really want to do. So for those of you who will have encountered a neighbor or a friend that says, yes, but my son or daughter didn't get in to the U of A, it's because they're taking international students, challenge that. Say that is not the case. Because it is a bit of an urban myth that's out there. We've worked very hard at government, but it is out there, and I encourage you all to push back on that. Thanks, Sasha.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Andre Bourgeois. I'm the UASU VP Student Life this year. So I love how you ask us to be advocates for the University of Alberta, like as students and as all of us, but I'm wondering if there are any kind of plans to inspire that kind of advocacy work amongst the student body to kind of build and create a social ecosystem where students do that kind of advocacy work like organically, where those conversations kind of flow out of the students. I think like if we talk about unlocking the potential of our students, as you mentioned in your speech, students have the largest potential to be the strongest advocates for the university.
There's no question about that, Andre. And Andre, as I've indicated to you and the SU executive, the opportunities for us to work together in common cause are very, very real. And with this speech, as we set the tone for the coming year, I would welcome an opportunity to sit down with you and your colleagues to talk about how can we integrate our advocacy strategies so that not only the SU here at the U of A, but students' unions across the province can be working in conjunction with college and university presidents to carry this message forward.
Cool. Thanks.
Well, it looks like we've exhausted questions. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend today. I want to thank all of those who are watching on the live stream. I appreciate your engagement. And I would just like to encourage you once again, not to just walk out of here and go, okay, I heard the president give another speech, but to engage with the core message, to get out there and talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors, and to talk about the important role public universities play in the social, cultural, and economic development of our community, our province, our country, and in fact, the world. We've got an important year coming up. And it's important that each one of us be effective advocates for this university and post-secondary education and research more broadly. Thank you all. Thank you for everything you do.